Oh, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the IT and OT conference for oil and gas. We are now ready to move on to the next session, which is technology showcase. And in this session, we'll hear from Mr. Mangesh Nawarange from ABB. Mr. Mangesh, am I audible to you?
Yes, Priyanka,
Yeah,
you're
a very
audible
warm welcome to the conference, sir.
thank you.
Before I hand over to you, I will briefly introduce you to the delegates, and then we'll start with your session. Mr. Mangesh is a digital lead for the Energy Industries Division, Process Automation at ABB India. In his current role, he closely works with customers to drive digital transformation in their organization. He is also leading the digital initiatives for energy management for India, Middle East, and Africa region for ABB. He has over 20 years of experience in industrial automation and product development. Mr. Mangesha joined ABB in 2003 and has held several positions spanning engineering, software, and product development over the years. In the area, particularly of digitalization, his focus hinges on transformation in IT and OT, particularly catalyzed by IoT, big data, simulation models, among other things. Mr. Mangesh is an instrumentation engineer by training with a diploma in software application development. A very warm welcome, sir, again to the conference. We are now ready for your session, and you may start with the presentation now.
Thanks, Priyanka, for a kind introduction. So good afternoon, everyone in this virtual conference. Just give me a moment to share my screen.
I request the delegates to please type in their questions while sir is presenting, and we will take them at the end of the session.
Priyanka, if you can confirm the screen is visible.
Yes, yeah, we can see the screen, the presentation.
Okay. Yep. So good afternoon, and this is the sixth edition. Last time I spoke, it was the fifth edition, and I heard some of the speakers before me. A lot is already discussed on what digital transformation is, how the oil and gas industry in India or globally approaching this digital transformation. So I think the context is set, the platform is set for most of the people in audience. What I want to do is focus on two specific areas because before me, as Mr. Mujumdar said, there are many areas and touch point where digital transformation is possible. So my focus will be more on the asset performance and cyber security. So that's a brief agenda. We look at the challenges as we hear them from our customers. What are the solutions and what ABB is doing for it? How it is benefiting the customers, and we will close the session with takeaways. Uh, the challenges, of course, this is not the comprehensive or the complete list of challenges, but these are the challenges that, at least in my conversation with customers in India and also customers outside, that predominantly feature in our discussions. Uh, Cyber security, we all know how significant, how important it is. And we clearly see there is a pull from the user to improve the cyber security posture. Uh, Price pressures, we know many events happen globally. It's an integrated economy these days, and any such events have some kind of a cascading effect. And these are the pressures, again, the users need to deal with. Energy transition, again, a subject which is spoken widely at many global events. Oil and gas companies seeing this transition, people are talking about the hydrogen, the power sector is moving more towards renewable, so on and so forth. So the transition with sustainability is also changing the way people want to do business or the companies are running their operations. And the last part, but the most important part for my presentation, that is risk management. And This is to do with the safety, this is to do with the security, and most importantly, this is to do with the assets, because assets are the one which are directly involved in the production. Uh, some numbers for you on your screen, and these numbers, of course, come from lot of research data, lot of survey which are conducted globally, and with the participation of major as well as let's say smaller players in oil and gas industry. And besides these numbers, what is typically said is the 30% of OPEX is spent on unplanned maintenance. So that's a big number that the users are looking at. And these numbers can be seen in different forms, but what is clear is there is a concern that remains with respect to the cost of maintaining the assets, running the facilities at higher efficiencies. Um, and when we think of assets, it's important to sort of step back and look at any manufacturing facility. I mean, it is of course oil and gas, but if we think of any other manufacturing facility, the landscape grows as the enterprise grows. So it's not just a one asset or one plant or one system, but it is all the way from the the lowest level in the manufacturing hierarchy, that is the components like electrical equipments, the rotating ones, the safety, instrumentation, so on so forth. And all of this is integrated into a hierarchical and a very complex network of assets. And the demand or the need is to have a visibility at every level in the enterprise. So this understanding this landscape is important because this tells us, how users are running the facilities with integrated assets and what they are expecting when they are talking about the asset management. So when we look at it from ABB perspective as how to do asset management, there are various dimensions to it. The first and foremost is the user wants to know what is happening with their asset. So bare minimum, which is about doing the condition monitoring and enhancing it by using the technologies which are available. As we heard before, the technologies like the IIoT, the Industrial Internet of Things, the wireless, uh, the protocols in wireless. It can be wireless hard, it can be Bluetooth or any other protocols, and that means sensorizing the existing assets, bringing more data, more information. But not only that, also integrating the information which was previously not available in one place, that is the engineering data as well as the business data, and using all of this in a contextual manner, ability to create a 360-degree view around the assets. And that is where the 360-degree prediction based on the fault modes of assets or the performance of assets is created. And what is also important in the asset management strategy for the users is also to do the assessment or the inspection for these assets and have all the information available in one place for the health monitoring. Uh, so this is a very old picture. Everyone knows about it, what it means to be reactive in terms of maintenance and what it means to be predictive. I mean, prescriptive is probably really the highest level, or we can also call it a wish list. But if we stay at the predictive level, users want to move more and more towards condition-based and predictive maintenance. And this is where ABB Genix APM Predict plays a key role to start with condition monitoring and create a value with predictive maintenance using the Predict, Perform, and Assess 360 degree. While doing all of this, it is important to know how industry is going about it, what are the industry standards around it. So the triangle is very traditional, where you have field instruments, you have the controllers, Scada, and the hierarchy is built. Uh, and when we talk of introduction of new technologies like IIoT, uh, the whole idea is not to disturb the existing setup, also to make sure the cost is at the minimal, and it should be possible to introduce these new technologies without stopping the production. That's the key element here. And that is where the IoT systems run parallel with the existing setup, because the primary focus is to sensorize the assets to bring more information, more knowledge, and then apply technology on top of it to create visibility. So there are industry standards. So for example, if you search Google and if you look for the Namur open architecture, it speaks volumes about how IoT systems shall be deployed in the existing or even in the new setups. So we are very well aligned with these industry standards. We participate in it, and we will see few examples how we go about the introduction of IoT systems in the industrial setup. Um, just to begin with, again, when I talk to customers in oil and gas, right from upstream all the way up to downstream, one thing in common in assets is everyone talks about their rotating equipment. And rotating equipment, right from the turbines, the compressors to the small pumps, motors, fans, so on and so forth. Uh, Before me, Mr. Mujumdar talked about, this vital, essential, and the important assets. So all the vital rotating equipments are always covered with the vibration monitoring system, because they are also used for the protection purpose. What rotating equipment that we want to focus with the IoT introduction is the essential ones. The essentials are those, if these equipments are deteriorating, or there are any kind of problems or shutdowns, it will affect production, and there will be either a loss of production, or potentially a shutdown. And to avoid that, rotating equipment is something users want to start with as and when I talk to them. Uh, in ABB, we have what we call it the next generation smart sensor, and it is not just a vibration sensor, but it is a sensor that senses vibration, the temperature, magnetic fields, ultrasonic, acoustics. So whole range of sensing is enabled the moment these sensors are installed on your rotating equipment, which are in the essential category. The most important aspect about these sensors is they are certified for the conditions that are often encountered in oil and gas industry, that is the hazardous condition. And what this sensor does is, as soon as these sensors are installed on your, for example, motors or pumps or bearings, the moment this is done, it starts giving you insight about what is happening with the RMS value, what is happening with the acceleration value. If there are any fault condition which are developing, there is a nature of predictiveness in it. So the assets which were previously either maintained as a reactive when they fail, or preventive as a routine maintenance, but we also learn from our customers the sheer number of these rotating equipments, it is impossible to follow and keep the preventive maintenance schedule. So it is very difficult to routinely do a preventive maintenance. Also, a lot of time is wasted in unnecessary preventive maintenance, and that is where users are looking at use of technology like IoT to enable these rotating equipments for condition monitoring. Uh, I'm sure many of you who are attending this have gone through similar experiences and have similar opinions, because this is what we always hear from customers. About these sensors, they are not just certified for hazardous environment, but there are certain certification requirements from Indian oil and gas industry, like a PESO certification, the WPC certification. So the sensor, the next generation smart sensor, has all the certifications in place, and they are ready for use in Indian oil and gas industry as well. Uh, Moving from rotating equipment, the second area of equipment that customers often talk about these days, and this is what we see more and more coming even for new greenfield projects, is their electrical equipment. And there is, of course, long list of electrical equipment, but just to begin with, switch gears, drives, transformers, relays, these are the common ones. And again, these are the equipments traditionally where the condition monitoring was purely based on inspections, handheld devices. Customers want to move to continuous real-time online monitoring of these equipment. I mean, for example, something as simple as how many times a circuit breaker has tripped versus how many times a circuit breaker has done an on-off operation. Whether the closing and opening time of circuit breaker, if there is any change from the designed operating parameters. And all these are indicators about circuit breaker and its deteriorating health. Same thing is about power cables. Same thing is about looking at partial discharge. So electrical equipments is, I would say, the second category of equipments where users want to go for the condition monitoring. And if we take a typical example, which is most common, a pump or a motor, or even a motor starter, so either a rotating or an electrical equipment, the Genix APM allows you to start small. So introduce IoT, start the condition monitoring, and then convert it into a complete 360-degree view by bringing the data from your engineering system as well as from your business system. And when I say business system, it's also about the spares data, it's also about the maintenance history, the fault history, everything together, and get more comprehensive and a 360-degree view about the same assets. But the idea is to start somewhere, start small, build that confidence. And not only confidence, one of the interesting comment I heard from a customer that when you start with this technology introduction and showcase results to your own people, a cultural shift happens because people form a very important element in this so-called technology process and people triad. And as long as people are willing to adopt the new technology and see the benefits of it in their day-to-day working, the transformation happens really fast. Uh, for technical questions, if there are any, the technology as we know these days, they are not restricted to on-premise only. The cloud is being discussed. Of course, in Indian industry, we have come a long way, but there is a lot of distance to cover in terms of adoption of cloud in a generic sense. A lot of work is happening from Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, setting up the guidelines about the usage of cloud. Uh, but for now, in my experience, majority of the customers prefer an on-premise installation and looking at some sort of a hybrid model to go to cloud in future. So the ABB Ability Genix is something which is very flexible in terms of its deployment. We start a deployment on premise and we scale it to cloud very easily without having to redo the whole deployment again. Various models and options are available because this is the need of the hour. The moment we talk digital, um, the customers are looking for subscription based, customers are looking at OPEX instead of CAPEX, and all these needs or requirements are being addressed with the flexible business models. How to go about it, uh, and it's a journey. And when a new technology is to be introduced or is being introduced, And when references are not too many to show the super success criteria, proof of concept is a place to begin with. We are working with quite a many customers in India. I am not even going global within India. So where we are delivering proof of concepts in rotating equipment condition monitoring and also other areas like, for example, cybersecurity. But proof of concept is the best and the safest place to start because uh, you plan for a small uh, installation, you measure the success, you understand the technology, you showcase the benefit, and then it's very easy also to get the approval from the management. It's also very easy to plan for your budgets going forward. So this is where most of the customers prefer to start. But I must say, in Indian industry, we are also seeing real requirement specification tenders where customers are clear about what they want in terms of asset management, and there are some very good requirements we have seen in last couple of years. Uh, just to showcase, this is an example where a proof of concept was implemented for oil and gas company in India for a small list of their assets. Uh, and again, the criteria was it's an aging workforce. An aging workforce means you lose experience. When you lose experience, and then you also have smaller OPEX budgets to maintain your assets, and and at a times lot of reactiveness in terms of maintaining these assets causing the disruptions in production. So these were problems, and uh, these are probably common problems across the industry, and this is where they started with this simple proof of concept. The important thing is in running condition without any stoppage or shutdown, the whole implementation was done, and it is a out of the box solution. You start the sensorization, you install these sensors, and then you start seeing, what the asset wants to tell you. Another example where there is a complete 360-degree view of assets, and this example comes from a renewable energy customer. We talked about the energy transition here, and more than 600 assets are covered for the health monitoring, and these assets are geographically distributed across the continents. So this is another example where the asset management or the Genix APM has been successfully deployed. And when we talk such scenarios of IIoT or integrating multiple sites, multiple geographies into a common system, the purpose could be simple dashboards, the purpose could be APM, the purpose could be vertical integration. But when all such things are discussed, it's even more important to talk about the cyber security part. And on cybersecurity side, I just want to talk about the industrial control system cybersecurity because these systems are there already running for decades. Um, and maybe some of you might have already heard or seen the news that there was a ransomware attack at one of the oil and gas customer, and this kind of prevented them from using their systems for a period of time. So this was a real attack, and this happened within India. So we all know these threats are real. Maybe some of you already know that the ministry is coming out with guidelines and the regulations. We clearly see a lot of moment. In fact, one of the customers said, Mangesh, don't say that this is digital, but this is necessity. Let's not call it digital, but this is necessity. So it has come to the level of necessity, and I think we all agree to that. So to reduce the risk of cyber security, there are multiple steps involved in it, and we are there offering end-to-end solution. And obviously, there are CERT empaneled agencies in India which support the risk assessment is carried out. Uh, We know a lot of our oil and gas customers, they have already initiated these steps. They have shared the reports of assessment with us as a OEM, and we are already discussing how to address the gaps, how to address the weaknesses in the cybersecurity posture of the control system. So assessment is very important, fundamental and foundational. Plan, why consultancy? Because cybersecurity is an area, it is an area of expertise. These expertise are not available in plenty, at least in OT domain. The expertise available in IT domain, they are not necessarily applicable one as to one. The adoption is required. And we know there is a supply demand gap. I mean, there is a lot of demand for the cybersecurity expert, but we don't find those many experts in the market with some vital experience. So that is where users are also going with consultants to plan their cybersecurity journey. But the implementation part is the crucial or the most important, and this is where the reduction of risk happens. And once the implementation starts, user need to maintain it, enhance it by adding more of monitoring, and then continue this cybersecurity posture. And I can tell you, as we go forward, there will be a lot of demand to start reporting the cyber incidences. I know, I would say all the companies have the CISO positions appointed or assigned to somebody. So people are already playing the role of CISO, and this has happened as a part of regulation or the mandate from the government, and they are driving the cybersecurity requirements. Now, what happens is there are so many solutions, so many tools available in cybersecurity. Customers always, say we are confused that which one to start with, where to begin with. And what is important is start where you get the maximum impact. Okay, so get started with minimum of malware protection, the security updates, having right backup plans in place, the system hardening in place, and then the reporting aspect. And this is where again the challenge lies. And this is again feedback from the customers where they say, we don't have enough or right people who know what and how to exactly report in terms of cybersecurity, how to be consistent with reporting. And this is where, this is an area where we realized the the introduction of technology will help, and that's what the role the cybersecurity workplace that plays. So once you have a cybersecurity workplace in your OT setup, it starts monitoring your security. It monitors your security controls. If there are any risk, you get notified. It also allows you to take certain actions like deployment of patches, disconnecting a remote user, and this is from a single window. So the way it helps is user don't have to move between multiple tools to address the day-to-day needs of cybersecurity, and also know exactly what is happening in their OT network or in their OT setup. So this is something which is being appreciated in the market for simplifying uh, the usage part of cybersecurity, and reducing the reliance of having the real experts of cybersecurity to do this repetitive task. Yeah. So with this, I completed my presentation, and yeah, back to you, Priyanka.
Thank you, sir, for a very informative presentation highlighting some of the very useful solutions for uh, ONG sector in IoT and IT and OT solutions. I will now move on to the questions, sir. So a couple of questions have come in for cybersecurity. I'll take them one by one. So the first question is, how can we implement cybersecurity in CGD and PNG sectors?
Okay. Uh, so as I said, I'll just go back to the slide. Even when we talk about any specific sector, we are still talking about the OT systems. The nature of deployment and the application may vary, but the what you see on your screen, starting with the assessment of your systems of your OT network, and based on assessment findings, going for the implementation of cybersecurity control. So the process remains same, the solution remains same even for the CGD and all the other sectors.
Mhm. Okay. So another question again pertaining to cybersecurity. So how to reduce the risk of cybersecurity challenges specific to SCADA implementation over cloud?
Okay. Uh, Yeah, so I think this is an interesting question because we see, especially at least in the recent past, the CGD sector is adopting to the cloud-based deployment of SCADA versus the conventional way of implementing it on-premise. Now, first thing, when it is in cloud, you have a natural cover of what the cloud provider offers you in terms of cybersecurity, ensuring their cloud setup itself is cyber secured. The focus there also is on when the data is transferred from the field all the way up to the cloud. In this hierarchy, whether you have right cybersecurity infrastructure in place. So something as simple as having firewalls separating your critical equipments and system from an external world, having something like a virtual private network, for example, giving remote access to the users. And then when we go to the cloud level and when we talk about SCADA, again, what you see in the picture here is about implementing the malware protection, the security updates, which typically comes from the OEM. So there are different areas where the solution is to be applied.
So another question, a related question regarding cybersecurity. As more data comes on cloud, means there are more chances of hacking and theft of data. How to ensure security, just in case you want to add something for it.
Uh, okay, so hacking, of course, is not my area of expertise, and as we all know, the system, the cyber security is not something where you say the system is now secured and we are done with it. It's a continuous journey. Um, so one of the things that I mean regarding data hacking and data protection, there are contracts where these kind of things are built into the cloud contracts with the cloud provider in terms of data protection. So those things have to be ensured that they are included in the contract.
Right.
But probably some of the experts in cybersecurity area can throw more light on it. This is not definitely a complete answer to your question.
Right. Sir, as you had mentioned in your presentation that around 30% of the utility expenditure is going towards unplanned maintenance. So what are the immediate steps or easy to implement measures that the utilities can undertake to lower these unplanned maintenances?
Okay. Uh, so again, let me just go back few slides just for the picture on the screen. Yeah. So the maintenance practices in any facility, it's a combination of reactive, preventive, and then more sophisticated. Uh, Now, the moment we talk unplanned maintenance, there are two reasons. One is right preventive maintenance has not happened. That is probably first and foremost reason. But the second reason is these are the equipments or asset where there is no monitoring in place, either a periodic one or a continuous one. So nobody is aware about the deterioration of its health condition. And as I said, the 30% part comes from, so this 30% also have a correlation for, I mean, if we talk about oil and gas industry or refineries, uh, major share of equipments are rotating equipments. Yeah. And as Mr. Mujumdar said, the vital, the essentials, and the not so important equipments. And there has to be a strategy which one are covered under the continuous monitoring. So the idea is to implement these IoT technologies like the wireless sensors I talked about, and implement these wireless sensors to start monitoring your necessary equipments, which is major portion. They run into 100. In some places, they run into thousands in number. The moment you cover them with this simple, cost-effective, and easy to deploy solution, uh, your maintenance practices immediately switch from reactive slash preventive to the condition based or a predictive maintenance. And that is one easy way to cut down about this kind of a 30% expenditure on unplanned maintenance.
So my another question is regarding the challenges that the utilities face in implementing digital solutions in their operations. So as you mentioned that these solutions do not have much downtime of the asset. So that is one positive point. But what are the bottlenecks or the challenges that the utilities face in implementing these?
Uh, Sorry, your question is more about the IoT solution implementation?
So overall, the digitalization of operations.
Okay.
What are the bottlenecks or the challenges?
Okay, so if we look at any setup, let's take for example a refinery, yeah, or any refining complex. It's a large complex, and the moment we look at the landscape of this complex, it is mix of system which are running in silos. Okay, we call them islands. So these systems are not talking to each other. These systems are not also bringing information in one common place for a common visibility. So a lot of systems are running in silos. So that is one challenge where there is no common view of the entire refinery as to what is happening, number one. Uh, Number two, the age factor of these systems. So systems are implemented, as recent as a year ago versus as old as maybe 7, 8, 10 years ago. And then maybe they are not open enough where these data can be accessed. So, the first and foremost challenge, the accessing the information from this system and bringing it to a common place. That's the first and foremost challenge. The next challenge really is to make sure whatever information shared by these systems, what is the quality of this data, the data validation part. So that is the second challenge, because the moment a quality data is presented in one common place, the rest of the job is far more easy to apply analytics to predictions to that data. So having the data in one place and having a reliable or a quality data. So these are the biggest challenges. Of course, there are solutions available. For example, OPC is the most commonly used technology to share data among different systems. There are centralized platforms, or what earlier days people called historians or MIS system, to bring data in one place. And with the advent of technology, now you can also connect with business systems like SAPs, Maximos, and others. So it's possible to bring data in one place and then also do the contextualization.
So before we end this session, I'll just take one last question which has come in from the delegates. How are you convincing customers to move from on-premise to cloud support? Since customer may feel cybersecurity issues, or what are the selling points to move to cloud-based support?
Uh, Honestly, I have not been successful in convincing customers to move to cloud. But let me say, a very positive sign is, and let me talk largely about PSUs, because we have large public sector entities, in oil and gas, so they are very important, and even in utilities. Uh, because there is some sort of a guidance governance which comes in from ministries when we have to adopt these kind of technologies. So something as simple as geofencing, so the cloud provider should have their data center in India, the data should not leave India. That's a very important requirement. And these companies are working in this direction, and when that is happening, it's also about a change in mindset. Okay, it's all about change in mindset. That's what I infer from many of these discussions. Um, the journey has started, and I'm very hopeful that we will see a very positive change probably from this year or next year onward itself. And convincing it only takes persuasion. We have to keep presenting. We have to show the. We have to address the concerns like cybersecurity, because cybersecurity threat is not restricted to clouds only. Okay. In fact, the cloud providers come predominantly from the IT companies, and IT companies are way ahead in terms of data security, cyber security compared to the OT. And they understand, what it means to have that kind of a security. And having said that, even when we look at on-premise installations, we see continuous cyber threats even for on-premise installations, even when we know, the systems are not connected. So okay, you can minimize by not connecting systems, but the threat is always there. And as I said, coming back to cloud, we just continue our persuasion, and we just continue our discussions with the users, and the change will happen.
Right. On that note, sir, we will end this session. Thank you so much for joining us today for a very informative presentation and very engaging discussion that followed. Thanks again, sir.
Thank you, Priyanka. Thanks, everyone.